We love that for her. I was really excited to start this book, and then I started it. Monotone, no inflection, no passion, especially during moments where some passion is passionately needed. Greetings, victims. In this video, which was voted for by my beautiful patrons, my beloved organs, I am going to be talking about the worst audiobooks that I've ever read. These audiobooks will range from perhaps we should have hired somebody else, but maybe there were budget cuts, all the way to this performance was so atrocious, I'm offended, and so was my dog. I often talk a lot about the audiobooks that I love and adore because I love to love things, and a good audiobook is one of my favorite things in the entire world. I tend to even rate audiobooks higher than what I'm reading physically because I just love reading audibly. I love the performance. I have never sat down and really critiqued audiobooks before, so don't be mad at me. Be mad at my beautiful organs for voting this video. I have my coffee right here and a list of these terrible books that I am hoping to save you from. I'm not saying don't read these books, I'm just saying maybe skip the audio. I'm also going to be giving you little samples of these books so y'all can also decide for yourselves if these audiobooks are as terrible as I'm making them out to be. Let's get started. First up, we have the audiobook for Grimm's Fairy Tales. I know that a lot of you are gonna
be like, Jessie, this audiobook came out a million years ago. Of course, production value isn't going to be great. Of course, the actor maybe not gonna be the best.
All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org.
Do you still feel that way after listening to that? Not all audiobooks that were produced in the 80s and 90s are terrible. That's terrible. That man sounds like he's in his grave. His own dying wish was to complete the audio. He sounds like he's in his casket and somebody has a microphone and is holding it into his face. At one point, I heard wheezing and I was like, sir, call an ambulance. I was deeply, utterly concerned about this man to the point where I got much further into the audiobook than I should have before I was like, wait, I don't have to die with him. Like, I don't have to croak. But I will say that the narration did help provide a chilly atmosphere because all I was picturing throughout reading that audiobook was this. This is who was narrating that story. Moving on. Now let's talk about an audiobook that I actually DNF'd last night, and that was The Sight by Melanie Golding. Now, this is going to be, I think, the only one on this list that I DNF'd just because it wasn't captivating and it was boring. The book itself is pretty boring. It's very standard. It's very run-of-the-mill. But the narrator's performance did nothing to enhance that. I have definitely stuck with very boring, formulaic novels because the audiobook narrator was phenomenal. And I think that if the narrator was just, I don't want to say better, but if the narrator was better, I know that I would have stuck with the book because I got pretty far into it. I got halfway before I was like, why am I reading this? I already know how it's going to end. I can tell you I'm not interested, I'm not excited to return to this audiobook. It's just something I'm putting on before bed and falling asleep to. If you're unfamiliar, The Sight is a novel that released this year, I believe in September, and it follows a girl who finds that she has the ability to see how a person dies if she looks into their eyes. So she takes to wearing an eye patch. Problem solved. The problem is that this is something that has run in her family's bloodline before, and people are terrified of her. She ends up joining the circus, and that was part of the allure of the novel because I really, really enjoy circus narratives. I always have. I loved Water for Elephants simply because it was set at the circus, that sort of thing. I love carnival things. I love that atmosphere. I love the history of the circus, even though a lot of it is really, really horrific. This book is pitched as Stranger Things for some unknowable reason. And I'm like, is it Stranger Things because there's a slight paranormal element? Because I'm not seeing it. And already the book was just, it just wasn't it. It felt way more like literary suspense than a thriller, which is fine, but it is definitely pitched as much scarier than it is. Okay, whatever, marketing, we get it. But the narrator is not bad by any means, just uninspiring. Then we have One by One by Ruth Ware. I don't know if I should just give up on Ruth. Ruth, please. Because the first book that I read from her was In the Dark, Dark Woods, and I loved it. It seems like that's a book that a lot of people didn't love, didn't enjoy, but I adored In the Dark, Dark Woods. I thought that it was beautiful. I really related to the protagonist. Mind you, I read this years ago, right before I started on BookTube, but I adored every single page. I felt a kinship with her writing and with the protagonist, and the plot twist was excellent. Ever since then, I have not been able to get into any of her books. The Lying Game is one of the worst books I've ever read in my life. It was so fucking bad. And I thought, okay, One by One is definitely going to be the book for me because I adore. If I let you love me, be the one adored, would you go all the way? Be the one I'm looking for. Don't run from me. Akasha, don't leave like my father. Winter horror, I love a shut-in setting. I love an isolated cabin. I literally have a readathon that I do with my patrons. It's called Camp Oregon, where we read books that are set in the woods, set in cabins, set at summer camp, any situation where a character has to make camp to survive or like goes to an island, that kind of thing. All of those count for Camp Oregon. It doesn't need to specifically be like summer camp. And so I was like, oh, this is the perfect Camp Oregon read. I'm so excited. And then I started the audiobook.
Loyalties and their arguments to and fro. Instead, I let James Blunt drown them out, telling me I'm beautiful over and over again. The irony of the statement makes me want to laugh, but I don't.
It's the weird pauses and emphasizing for me. Why? Why? What is with the fucking pauses? I'm like, is something supposed to happen in these pauses? Is it giving anticipation for somebody else? And the emphasizing of certain words that don't need to be emphasized is just very confusing to my brain. I don't know how anybody was able to get through this audiobook, but God bless. This next one really breaks my fucking heart because I gave both of the books in this series 5 out of 5 stars, despite the narrator. The books that I'm going to be talking about are The Witchery and The Shadow Coven by S. Isabel. This is a very, very underrated black, dark academic, magical, witchy book about a trio of 3 black witches who welcome a new witch into their coven whose name is Logan. And they have to protect their town from these werewolves that come out at night and tear everybody to fucking pieces. Like, no one's having a good time. And it's a really fantastic book. It is queer, it is body positive. The black girl representation is amazing. The magic is really sweet and has elemental magic in it, which is one of my favorite things. It gives The Craft, which is one of my all-time favorite fucking movies. It gives Charmed, and it's a really, really beautiful story inside and out. And it is dark and messy and brutal and gruesome at times. So it balances wholesomeness with brutality really well. The narrator, though, the narrator does a pretty good job of narrating the girls' voices. Let's talk about Trent. Trent is this British boy who moves to town, and his narration, the way that this narrator does the British accent for this boy, I physically cannot. I had to close my eyes and picture a better place every single time the narrator tried that accent. I don't have a recording of it and I just can't be bothered enough to get it, but it is really bad. It is the worst British accent I've ever heard. And also, like, trying to deepen the voice in order to match the timbre of what this boy probably would sound like isn't helping the accent either. And it comes out sounding, it just sounds very like, oi mates, hello, my name is Trent. Like, I swear to God, that is how Trent sounded in the whole book. And I was like, is Trent okay? Like, are we not gonna talk about Trent? We need to talk about Trent. Like, what's going on? I'm sorry if my face is oddly glowy.
I don't know what the fuck is happening with my autofocus right now. So.
Okay, let's talk about Dracula.
Do we have to?
Again, I know a bunch of you are gonna be like,
Jesse, this book is old as hell. The audiobook is old as hell.
okay, so the narrator was a woman, which I wasn't expecting, and I really enjoyed it.
Number of years. The closed gates are of heavy old oak and iron, all eaten with rust. The estate is called Carfax, no doubt a corruption of the old Quatre Face, as the house is four-sided, agreeing with the cardinal points of the compass. It contains in all some 20 acres, quite surrounded by the solid stone wall above mentioned. There are many trees on it, which make it in places gloomy, and there is a deep, dark-looking pond, a small lake, evidently fed by some springs, as the water is clear and flows away in a fair-sized stream. The house is very large and of all periods back, I should say to medieval times, for one part is of stone immensely thick, with only a few windows high up.
What's with the background noise? At one point I heard birds. Were we not in a sound booth? Did we record this in our kitchen? What the hell is going on? And this static, I felt like I was in the Poltergeist. I felt like that little girl who got sucked into the television and nobody came to save me. I was very concerned about what the fuck was going on in the background during this entire audiobook. I, as you can predict, did not get very far into this audiobook because I did not want to be reading it. Now, the only reason I'm bringing up the audiobook for Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is because it does one of my biggest pet peeves. It is something that will automatically, instantly, every single time make me DNF an audiobook. And it is when a narrator drags their vowels.
There was never a day when if you had said to me, Jekyll, my life, my honor, my reason depend upon you, I would not have sacrificed my left hand to help you. Lanyon, my life, my...
Why are you doing that? Why are you dragging your vowels? Please stop. You know the millennial whoop, which is basically this phenomenon that's been documented in millennials, is pop music, where there's a lot of like, oh, ooh, kind of sounds. That's how I felt while listening to this audiobook. And
I just simply could not do it.
That is the extent to which these vowels were being dragged. In some ways, I felt that this audiobook was my karma, because clearly I did something to deserve the dragging that I was experiencing. Oh, who texted? Someone loves me. Sorry, putting this on silent. I'm so sorry, but Gallant by V.E. Schwab, this audiobook needs to simply be redone. I have a feeling I would have DNF'd this book regardless of the audiobook, but I am absolutely telling you that the audio did not make matters better. It was so off-putting that it destroyed all curiosity I had in the book. And already the reviews were not great, especially getting reviews from people that I tend to align with on books. I was like, okay. But I still wanted to give it a try. It was one of my most anticipated releases. We love V.E. Schwab. I wanted to try it and see for myself if it was going to be a book that wasted my time. The audiobook? No. Absolutely not. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam. I am. Why? And I had said this before, and somebody was like, well, this is the reason why they chose this person to narrate the book. That's great. The reasoning at the time made sense, but it didn't change the fact that I think from a reader's standpoint, at least from my standpoint, what was attempted to be accomplished was in fact not accomplished. I think that we all could have just stayed in bed. I think that perhaps we should have held more auditions for the narrator of this book. My dog was available. My grandmother, God rest her soul, she had an incredible voice. I could have resurrected her and had her film this audiobook. Absolutely not. No. The narrator for this audiobook was an old British man, and the voice is a small female child. I couldn't get past it. Like, how? How am I supposed to take this book seriously and get into it and picture this little girl who is orphaned and then she finds her way into her family's manor and is going through all this weird paranormal shit? How am I supposed to get into the whimsy and the fear that she's feeling and the uncertainty when the narrator's voice sounds like this? I have not heard a single person have a nice thing to say about this audiobook. In fact, I haven't heard a single person have anything to say about this audiobook, which should be telling you something. Oh my god, you guys, I finally figured out what the fuck was wrong. My autofocus wasn't on, and I think the light behind wasn't helping, so I am so sorry for all of the focus issues in this video. I got frustrated with a book that I was reading, which is fucking terrible, yesterday, and I kind of threw my camera, and I think it messed up the settings a little bit. Sorry that I was shining bright like a diamond for most of this video. Then we have to talk about the cabin at the end of the world, at the end of the woods, at the end of my nerves. This is by Paul Tremblay. Again, you guys know that I'm wet for cabin stories. I fucking love it. I have a sweater that I wear almost every fucking day, and it says your cabin or mine. That's how serious it is. So again, cabin narrative, child protagonist, thriller, isolated, killers coming for you, that kind of thing. Sign me up each and every time. I really hope that one day I get to be in that kind of survival story, because I promise you I'm gonna live. First of all, if I don't survive by outrunning everybody because I ran track and I'm surprisingly fast, nobody would ever find my hiding spots. I'm basically Rue from the Hunger Games. I can wait out anybody. I shit you not, I once played a game of hide and seek with a friend, and the one rule was that we couldn't leave the apartment, and he looked everywhere for me, and then he texted and was like, you're not supposed to leave the apartment. I was in the refrigerator, folded up like a fucking pretzel. No one would ever find me. Okay, so anyway, the cabin at the end of the world, woods, ridge, whatever, cliff, is about this little girl who is at a cabin with her daddy, and then 3 strangers come up with like machetes and shit and are like, hey, don't feel bad about what's about to happen. None of this is your fault. And I guess they all have a really bad day from there. We left that for her. I was really excited to start this book, and then I started it. And this is what the audio sounded like.
Leonard breaks the line of the 4 and steps forward, putting himself between Eric and Andrew. He's bigger than all the others combined, and he's bigger than the cabin itself, a conflicting, confounding size that only a child could ever equate with innate, implacable gentleness. Wen remembers being held in his arms while Daddy Andrew fought with Redmond. To her shame, she remembers feeling safe. Wen says,
now I can't exactly pinpoint why this audiobook isn't for me, but this kind of soft, whimsical narration for this kind of story isn't doing it for me. It's kind of giving poetry, and I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with that. It wasn't selling the atmosphere of the book. I wasn't buying it, and I didn't want to be inside of it. Can we please talk about water for elephants? I had heard that this audio was bad, and I just wanted to give it a try anyway, make my own opinions, all of that. I think that sometimes you need to be a sheep and just go with what everybody else is saying so that you can spare yourself. And this was a sheep moment. I think that everybody had tried to protect me and my sheared little wool to keep it over my eyes, and I didn't want to fucking listen. This is what I endured while listening to the audiobook for Water for Elephants.
Some bother over nothing. All those young folks clucking with worry and buying canned food because somebody was too lazy to leave space for 4 digits instead of 2. But that could have been last month or 3 years ago.
Tom Waits, is that you? I just think that this is a classic case of overacting. And why is there so much gurgling? Are your lungs okay? Should we take you to a hospital? This homeboy literally filmed that scene in the open casket next to the dude who did the narrations. Right next to the dude who did the narrations for the Grimm's fairy tales. They were like holding hands. I was deeply concerned. I was like, wow, you nailed that audition, and you said, I'm gonna give it everything I've got. I just couldn't take it seriously. The kind of overacting took me out of the story. But on the flip side, I did really appreciate the voices. I do really appreciate when a narrator nails and tries to sell how this person would talk and to bring that atmosphere into the book. I find it so much better for somebody to over voice act than to under voice act and have the book just be dreadfully monotonous. I was gonna say monogamous. You know what I mean? I would love to know from y'all, however, would you prefer that a narrator overact or underact? Which would be better for you? And also, if you're not familiar with Water for Elephants, this is a circus narrative, and there is like a forbidden romance between this guy who had everything going for him, and then his parents die, and he is left with nothing.
I can speak English.
He's left with nothing and ends up joining the circus, and then he meets this beautiful girl who is played by Reese Witherspoon in the movie, and he falls in love with her, but she is the girlfriend of like the ringmaster's. She's the girlfriend of the ringmaster, who's also deeply, deeply abusive. And she, I believe, is like a trapeze, jump around, do flips and shit artist. And it's about their forbidden romance and the circus life, the carnival life, all of that. And I really, really loved it. I thought that all of the elements of the story were so well done, like selling that circus atmosphere and making these characters really come to life. The romance. I actually shed a tear on the final page, believe it or not. Mind you, I read Water for Elephants many, many years ago, so I did not have the same kind of critical analytical lens that I do now with literature. So if there is something wildly problematic or just didn't age well about that book, I would love to know in the comment section down below. If you have any recommendations for circus books, carnival books, and also books that fit Camp Oregon, so survivalist stories set at camp, that kind of thing, please leave them down below. I don't care if they're popular books. I don't care if you think I've already read them. They're just my jam, my bread, and my butter. Now we have to talk about Pachinko. This breaks my actual heart, and we already know that my heart isn't doing well in general. Those of you who aren't aware of the stellar modern classic that is Pachinko, we are following a Korean immigrant family. It's a saga of their life, their struggles, their hardships, their loves, their joys, as they simply just try and survive. This was recently adapted, and the adaptation is supposed to be marvelous. This book won a slew of awards and is beloved, and it's one of those books that's been on my shelves for too damn long, and I can't wait to get to it. But I know that when I finally do get to this book, it is going to destroy me, and I'm ready for that. I want to be ripped apart inside and out. You know what I'm saying? I want my heart to look like Freddy took his beautiful claws to it. You know what I'm saying? However, the audiobook was not it for me. Were there any of you who liked this audiobook? Please comment down below and let me know what the fuck I missed. Okay, it was not giving for me what was supposed to be gave. A really good way for me to get through books that are thick that I'm intimidated by is to start via audio or just read them via audio, because then I can listen to snatches here and there, 10 minutes while I'm driving, or a half an hour before bed while I'm brushing my teeth or just falling asleep, that kind of thing. Like, falling asleep to audiobooks is my favorite thing in the world, honestly. They make me feel so safe and held, and I sleep better with them. It's great. Those of you who had parents that read bedtime stories to you may kind of like get that feeling of being small and warm in bed and listening to something that you want to stay awake for, but it just calms and soothes you and you fall into slumber. I think that audiobooks tap into that childhood magic of getting to fall asleep while listening to a story, for me at least. Which is why when I put on an audiobook, it doesn't matter how insomniac I am, how much I'm hurting, what's going on in my life, if I put on an audiobook and I'm laying in bed and the book is good, I am out like a fucking light. And one of my favorite games that I play with myself, it's so embarrassing, is to like try and fight the power. Like, try and fight the power and stay awake and listen to the audio as long as I can. And I swear to God, I never get past a half hour. Like, I'm trying to get through the audiobook for At All the People Lights Went Off by Stephen Graham Jones, his latest horror anthology, I think. And I just cannot stay awake trying to listen to this book in bed because it's so good. Okay, that was an oddly romantic little rant about audiobooks in a video where I'm shredding them to pieces. All right, so let's talk about Pachinko and why this book was not it for me.
Fever. Her second baby had a perfect face and good legs, but he too died before his Bakil celebration from diarrhea and fever.
I'm sorry, ma'am, a child is dead. Why are you narrating it like this? That was just the tone of voice. Again, as you can probably tell, that flat, monotone, no inflection, no passion, especially during moments where some passion is passionately needed, does not work for me. I don't want it to feel like you're reading a script in a pretty voice. I want a performance. And that is not to say that performing that way isn't valid. Totally, of course it is. That's how you want to perform. Like, that is how the book shows up for you. That's totally fine. I'm sure tons of people love audiobook performances that are more minimalistic. I'm not one of them. I am not one of them. I was a kid who loved like the voices and the rising and fall. Like, I want my heart to be beating when the main character's heart is beating, and I want it to be calm when the main character is calm. Like, do you know what I'm saying? I want more of a performance from my audiobook, and this like very soft lyrical sing-songy voice was not doing it for me personally. There are plenty of types of narratives where that type of voice is spot on for me. But even so, I do need some rise and fall, okay? You know when you're on a treadmill, you put like a little bit of an incline and then you go down, you're like doing HIIT training. It wasn't giving. And I'm not even gonna focus much on The Comfort Book by Matt Haig. I think that Matt Haig is a very hit or miss homie. I didn't end up reading The Midnight Library, even though it was a very, very beloved book. I just didn't get to it because I didn't know if it would hit too hard mental health wise. And so I thought I would try The Comfort Book.
Baby. Imagine yourself as a baby. You would look at that baby and think they lacked nothing. That baby came complete. Their value was innate from their first breath.
What was comforting about this narration, Matt? Did we take any classes? Matty boy. Those Father Christmas audiobooks though, slap each and every year. I'm definitely gonna be rereading that series this year. I love The Boy Who Saved Christmas, or whatever that series is. Oh my God, I loved it so much. And the adaptation with Maggie, oh my God, it was so good. But Matt Haig is one of those authors who should not be narrating his books. I love when authors narrate their books, and I think that I think this is the first time an author has narrated their books where I was like, dear God, please no. Like, what did I do to deserve this punishment? What crime did I commit? It's giving Fyodor Dostoevsky. I absolutely cannot. Right. Now it is time for me to talk about the worst audiobooks. The audiobooks that are at the top of my list that I just simply can't get behind, that I have nothing good to say about. We're gonna get started with Women Eating by Claire Coda. I wanted to like this book so bad. Jan really enjoyed it, and I love I love vampiric books. I love cannibalistic books. I love books that involve fucked up shit involving blood. I always have, I always will. And I also love feminist literature. I love an artist protagonist. And I was really excited to see an Asian woman's contribution to this genre. I was very, very geeked about it. And I think the audiobook ruined the whole experience for me because I have absolutely no interest in trying this book in another format. Already the story was it was just too slow for me. And if you know me, you know I really like slow books. I do. I love them. But it was like crawling a little too slow on a story that already isn't very big and sensational, if that makes sense. You're following this woman who needs to drink blood to survive. She's a vampire, and her mom sucks and is an old vampire, and she's trash. She's an artist, and she ends up getting this position, but her boss is a fucking creep, and everybody in the office knows that the boss is a creep. And so it's about the dark side of... Oh my god, look at Akasha. What is she doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What is this? What'd you do? Yeah, oh, you're gonna give me the leg. You give me the leg. Yes, the leg. Who's a good girl? Yes, who's a good girl?
Array of things to keep people of all ages entertained. There is one of those colourful wire bead mazes for kids you often find. The fast trains from London St Pancras to Margate own fingernails. I've picked it a bit too much. It hurts.
I didn't bother really digging in to find the specific thing that she did in dialogue that drove me nuts. It wasn't even just the general narration, but the dialogue was so flat. I could not tell the difference between this woman having a conversation and this woman having thoughts. I could not stand it. And frequently she would say, yeah, which is fine, but just, I don't know if it's just my own thing, but the way she said yeah drove me nuts. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And it was so frequently said throughout the book that I was like, I can't fucking make it. Like, I'm not gonna make it. No, like, I'm not gonna fucking make it. I really didn't like this book. I did not like the narrator at all. The voice just wasn't doing it for me, unfortunately. Are you still with me, kids? Unlike my father. We are ready to talk about our top 2 worst audiobooks that we have ever endured. One of them, we went all the way to the end to, and the other, I just simply went too far. 2 chapters was too far. Coming in at number 2 for the worst audiobooks that I have ever read, we have Middlesex by some guy who I don't care about. This audiobook won, excuse me, obviously the audiobook didn't win shit. The book Middlesex won a Pulitzer, and it is absolutely beloved. I have worked very hard to erase the synopsis from my mind, to simply forget my trauma and what I endured during listening. And I just have one question.
Underworld figures he idolized, the thin, mustachioed thieves and gamblers who filled the seaside bars of Athens and Constantinople. His nose was aquiline, his eyes sharp, the overall impression of his face hawk-like.
Is he underwater? Is he drowning? Is he recording this from a pineapple under the sea? What the actual fuck? Did we not quality control? Did he record this on his Android? Did he record it on a lamb? Did he record it in the woods as it was raining? I have so many questions. I can keep going. My blood pressure was so fucking high listening to this book. It didn't even come out that long ago. And finally, we're gonna talk about one of my most highly anticipated releases. The book itself, this was one of those situations where the audiobook could have made it better by a star. But the book was so fucking bad, there was really no saving it. And that, unfortunately, is Piñata by Leopoldo Hu. God, this book sucked so bad, and I was deeply excited. I think this was in my top 10, for sure. We are following a family, 1 mom and 2 girls, who are just trying to make it. They're going through a lot. And they end up, the mom, on a trip to Mexico, ends up bringing home an artifact that should have been left the fuck alone. Basically, someone gets possessed. And there's a grumpy witch, there's a curse. I will leave the vlog down below where I read Piñata, gave it a 1 star, and I put in screen recordings of the woman's voice. If I can be bothered, I will go find that screen recording and put it in here. But I genuinely don't know if I can be bothered to listen to endure it again. Her voices were really bad, you guys. The kids' voices, a lot of people complain about the children's voices. They didn't bother me as much as the fucking witch. Oh my God, the crone, the voice for the crone It genuinely sounded like this. Like, I was like, I'll get you my pretty and your little dog too. It was so fucking bad, you guys. It was so bad. And then sometimes the narrator would start yelling for no reason. In a normal sentence, no one's speaking. I think I said this in the vlog. It would be as if she was recording one sentence in a paragraph and then took a break, and then when she came back and started the next sentence in the paragraph, her voice was just higher because she'd been quiet for a while. That's kind of what it sounded like. For an example, I sold this book on Pango so quick, so I don't even have it with me. This first sentence I see is, home with my trophies. I saw that they were very, very pleased with me. The trophies were severed hands, by the way. This is a really good book. They saved food for me. They saved bits of tobacco. This is how she would read it. Home with my trophies. I saw that they were very, very pleased with me. They saved food for me. They saved bits of tobacco. They were truly so pleased to see me come back that they never asked me how I did it, how I captured the enemy rifle and a severed hand. They were so pleased. You think I'm kidding? Listen to the audiobook. It was not good. There were points where she tried to do screeches. Again, were there budget cuts? Was the narrator a niece? Was it a favor? Come on, come on guys, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? Thank you so much to my beautiful organs for voting for me to do this video, because I don't think I would have had the guts to do it without y'all. For those of you who are kind of just joining, I have a Patreon that is Hannibal the Cannibal themed. So you can join for as low as $1 and become a sweetbread, or you can become an artery, a lung, or a heart. And we do fun shit all through there, writing excerpts from my 2 upcoming novels, reading sprints, TV show watch-alongs, all of the fun stuff, live streams. It's a fucking blast on my Patreon, and I produce way more content for my patrons than I do on the main page, I'm not gonna lie. But if you're not ready to join Patreon just yet, check out the links in my description, because I have tons of videos down there that I think you guys would like. They're my more popular videos, so if you wanna binge my stuff and aren't sure where to start there. If you made it this far in the video, I want you to leave some kind of audio themed emoji. It can be a microphone, it can be a boombox, it can be a speaker, anything like that, a cassette tape, in case you're one of those people that gets like commenting anxiety but just wants to show me that you made it this far. This video is longer than my parents' marriage, so stay bloody, and I hope to see you in my next video.